Good afternoon and welcome to Campus Conversations. I'm Allison Smalley. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni and Donor Engagement and Membership, and we're so happy to have you with us today to talk about estate planning that includes CMU. I have a few housekeeping items I will go through before I turn it over to our presenter, Jeremy Mishler. Please try to stay muted throughout the presentation just so we can manage any feedback issues we might have. Additionally, we love to have you ask any questions you might have throughout the presentation. But Jeremy has a lot of material to go through, and we think perhaps some of your questions might be answered throughout the presentation. So if you would like to put your question in the chat, then we will go through all of those towards the end, the question and answer portion of the presentation. And additionally, I just wanted to remind everybody that this is recorded. All of our campus conversations are recorded. I will send out the recording to everybody who registered for this event, along with a survey. And these are also housed on our Campus Conversation YouTube channel. So I'm going to go ahead so we can get started and turn it over to Jeremy Mishler. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Allison. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for your help today in facilitating this conversation. And welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. So glad that you could join us. The conversation that we're going to have today is around estate planning. And the reason we're having it today is because this week is National Estate Planning Awareness Week. And it's really a time as we head towards the end of the calendar year where a lot of people start thinking about some of the plans that they have long-term financially and what they have in place or not in terms of taking care of family and other things that are important to us. And so I'm going to walk through some of the basics that we often find ourselves discussing with folks who are making estate plans that include CMU and other things they care about, their families, what have you. And when we get to the end, I'm going to show you a few of the resources that we provide free to all CMU alumni and friends to help them with this. And part of the reason that I'm the person talking with you is because as the Deputy Chief of Advancement Campaign Strategies, I oversee our major giving team, which is a fabulous team of dedicated professionals here at CMU who work with alumni and friends of the university who are supporting us through larger charitable donations and also through planned charitable gifts as well. And so I'm the person who sort of have overseen the planned giving area in particular for the last 2 years. And this is a time where we've really tried to ramp up a greater awareness of this because we feel like there has been tremendous support from our alumni and friends for CMU over the years. And the idea of planning that support as a part of your estate is a way that for many alums and friends that they can think about making their impact a bit bigger, but also setting it out into the future as they think about their legacy. So I'll go through some slides that I prepared for today to kind of spur our discussion on, and then share some of those resources and answer any questions we have. So bear with me while I share my screen. All right, now I believe everybody should see a screen that starts with estate planning for you and CMU. And Allison's nodding her head, so that tells me we're in good shape. You are too, Christine, thank you. Barbara Duran, I also happen to see you on my very limited bar, so thank you for joining us. So let me start with this, which is I want to really hope to answer, at least on a very basic level today, 4 questions. What is estate planning? Why might I need a plan? How do I get started with making a plan? And how can CMU help? The first thing is, what is estate planning? Estate planning is the process through which you legally plan out. Most people know this as a will or a trust, right? So you're putting a document on paper that you're establishing what should happen with your resources when the time comes that something happens to you. And this can be a process that can be fairly simple. It can be a process that, depending on who you are and your family and your resources, can be a little bit longer. But it's certainly a process that does take a little bit of preparation and usually some assistance professionally. I'll talk through that in a minute. Mostly when I talk to folks, they ask me, well, okay, great. Yeah, everybody knows you should have a will. But they're like, yeah, but really answer for me the why piece. And I always talk to folks a little bit about the need for a game plan, not so much for you when the time comes, but for your family and friends and the other things you care about. Because likely a lot of people will say to us, hey, I've included CMU in my plan, or hey, I've really got some things taken care of for my family, and I'm starting to think about what else might fit. And I'm always like, great, perfect, thank you. The important thing is, working with a professional to get that down in such a way that it really sets that roadmap, that game plan for those who are going to fulfill your wishes. Really make sure your legacy is done to the way you wanted it, and that it goes smoothly for everybody you intended it to. There are a lot of things that are involved with an estate planning. It really designates your beneficiaries. So who you really want to take care of and why, how you're dividing up your assets to do that. And who might be, and when you're establishing this, who might take the lead in managing those logistics for you, and making sure that your legacy and your intent is fulfilled. A lot of times people will think of that as the executor, but in some ways that title extends to a couple of people in your family, or a person that may not be in your family at all. It might be a legal advisor or a financial advisor. Why do I need an estate plan? I really call out 3 numbers for your review. The first is half, which is that approximately half of Americans don't have an estate plan. And why is that significant? After all, we certainly all have the freedom to make good decisions for ourselves. And if we don't want to set a plan, great. But why is that important in the future? I call your attention to that second number. That number is $20 trillion. Over the next 2 decades, maybe even a little bit less, maybe more like 17 to 18 years, $20 trillion will be transferred between families, between businesses, and much of this will be dictated through estate plans or not. And so when you think about that level of impact and what your piece might be in that for your family and those you care about most, it really begins to put in perspective, I kind of need to have an understanding of what my piece of that might be, and realize that there is ultimately a clock for all of us, and B, what would I like the impact for that to be after I'm no longer here? And then the last is 40%. And I highlight 40% because 40% could be the collective tax rate those you care about and others who are benefiting from your estate might pay should your plan not be as complete or defined as perhaps you thought it was. And a lot of these taxes on the estate side can be mitigated to a certain point, or you could make some moves as a part of your estate planning now that really help lessen that tax and really help make it a smoother process for your family and for the causes you care about, like CMU, to really get the full benefit of what you intend. Why else do I need an estate plan? As most people start to reflect on this, they kind of come into one of the 3 or 2 or 3 of the 3 categories I have listed here. And I know the writing is small on the screen, so I'll go ahead and read it from you for my notes. And I think of 3 P's: peace, protection, and provision, right? An estate plan should give you and your family peace of mind. It is one of those things, kind of like insurance, that, it's a thing that really, it makes a lot of sense. It does a lot of good, but it's also the kind of thing that we really don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about. But the time you do invest with it will really help you be at peace in terms of important, or what are oftentimes difficult, decisions involving your loved ones and other things that you may not be in a place to be able to make a final call when the time comes. And so you've got the plan in place, you've got this peace of mind. Protection, estate plan provides, whether it's future medical decision, protections for your family financially. A good plan can also perhaps increase your lifetime security financial goals, depending on how it's set up and who might benefit from that. When we think of planning, it's not only estate planning. It doesn't only have to be bequests or things that are dictated in a will or a trust. There are other ways that you can have your plan built, so that might be a centerpiece, but there are things both in advance and at the end that can really make some sense financially for you. And then provision. A well-designed estate plan really takes care of you and your family. It transfers the right assets or property to the right people in the right way at the time that it needs to happen at the lowest cost possible. So an attorney or financial advisor is going to really help you set a plan that does what you need to do and keep both those current costs that might be on the front end and those back end tax costs really to a minimum. I add one more thing to sort of those standard 3Ps, which is that an estate plan, more than anything else, documents your intentions, right? It articulates your legacy, what you really have reflected on and felt was important for your family, for how you may want to be remembered as a champion of, the impact that you can know today you're going to have on something that you've truly cared about and committed a great deal of time towards. And so articulating that legacy is incredibly important, because I think sometimes we believe with family and friends and coworkers that folks really know us, and they do. But in the end, without a roadmap, it can sometimes be left to question as well, should the impact be here or there or equally, all those types of things. And a plan really makes that easily for everybody. It alleviates confusion, conflict. It can cut down on time, as your estate moves into probate and through. It can really create a situation where if you've got family who need the support that you've left for them, it really helps on that time frame side. And then I think important for all the time that we have left, and I encourage people to make an estate plan as early as possible, because it establishes a basis for you to review what's important to you, how your life has changed, how your family has changed, how your career may have changed, and make changes to your plan as that goes on. And sometimes people will say to me, well, at 40, I didn't know where I would be or what I would want to impact at 60. And my argument back is, but if you had a plan that you started with, that you put on paper at 40, and you've been periodically looking at it, you've documented that evolution on your own perspective on legacy and the evolution for whom and how you want to make provision for, in a way that everybody else now can see too. So they see your logic. They're a part of your vision, and they're in a place where they're able to really see your legacy happen the way you intended. Getting started. Now, hearkening back to that first number, that roughly 50%, that one half of Americans who don't have an estate plan. A lot of folks will say, I've got time to do that, which may or may not be true. But they also say, I'm not in a place for that. And I think it's really because nobody knows, or at least not those who haven't really looked into it much, don't really have a comfort level with what it would take to get going on a plan. There are really only four steps to getting going on what could be a really great plan for you and your family. It starts with writing down what's important. I know that sounds so basic, but it's true. It's taking the time to gather information about who you are, what you want, the impact you want to have, those types of things, chronicling all the loved ones you want to have an impact on, and all of the assets that you have, and beginning to, if nothing else, think of it as connecting the dots between those assets, that vision, and those you want to help in a way that the right assets get to the right people in the right way. So it really starts with, in a simple way, if you want to think about it, a list making process. The second part is seeking professional advice. I can't stress this enough. While I talk with folks quite often, and my colleagues talk with folks quite often who are either making their plan or augmenting their plan, or feel like they're going to be, adding some things to it on the back end that will impact family after they're gone. I really advise them, and my colleagues advise everyone, you need to speak with an attorney. An attorney can help you draw this up officially. They can get all the legal documents in place, whether it's a will, whether it's a trust, whether as a part of that you have a medical directive that you want clearly articulated, right? And so, yes, there's a little bit of a front end investment working with a professional, but the back end benefit and the ongoing benefit, as you're going to see in a minute when we're talking about continuing to review your plan, is worth it. Now, to the extent that professional advice is out there, it runs the gamut, right? There are a number of wonderful and trusted online professionals who, you can really go on there and for a few $100s create a will that addresses your needs, and have the right people sign off on it, and you can get that in place. And for a number of people that works really well, and oftentimes that's a really good start to having something that they're going to look at long term. But I think as you move further along and you're really building on your plan, working with an attorney that you trust, that your family knows who they are as a practitioner, is really something that I would recommend it well. Having an understanding of what's in your plan then becomes almost as important as having good, knowledgeable advice, right? You want your plan to be able to transfer your property and assets to the beneficiaries you've identified, family members, organizations, etc. And so your plan should very expressly identify what that is, and there should be great confidence from a legal standing and from your personal standing amongst your family that this is the plan and this is how it's going to work. And when the time comes, this is what we should all expect. And then the last is, and I know this sounds a little funny, but make sure you sign your documents. And the reason this happens, and the reason I put this reminder in here, is because you might be surprised that a number of people really get started on this and then life happens. And they could have, but didn't. Or they were going to check on one more thing, but didn't. And I think as you're speaking to an attorney or an advisor, and you're at a point where you're comfortable with where it's at, especially if this is a will or a living trust, right? That's a revocable document. You can change it at any time. And so, but you want to make sure that it's legally sound so that when it has to be put into place, everything will work well. So as you're working with whomever is helping you, make sure that if you're at a point where you're comfortable doing so, sign your documents and have them notarized. Super important. And then lastly, to these 4 steps to a good estate plan, I would add in that you should review and update your plan every 3 to 5 years. There are so many ways that families grow, businesses evolve, change, new partnerships are set up. Things become important to us. The things that are important to us change over time, and we want to add or make adjustments. And so we really recommend, and this is oftentimes a process that my colleagues and I work with a number of folks who support CMU, look at your plan about every 3 to 5 years. A lot of times your plan might dictate beneficiaries based on a percentage or from a list of folks in a particular order. And depending on where you're at in life, the resources that you have to dedicate towards those, that may have grown, may not have grown. You may have needed to use more of your IRA, for example, than you originally thought. And so you can make some adjustments to your plan based on all of that so that you have that same level of peace and confidence and security that we talked about earlier as your plan continues to evolve with you. There's also a lot of things that as you get started that I think sometimes leave folks with kind of a little bit of intimidation. I don't want you to be. Yes, all of these things in this wheel right here are a part of what goes into considering your estate plan. So yes, we want to consider what your assets are. Yes, there are laws and processes in place that will need to be taken into consideration, and there may need to be directives medically. There need to be guardians. There may need to be heirs and executors. The person you're going to designate as to handle all the logistics of your plan when you're gone. But it's okay, because you can, working through a guide like I'm about to show you, you can chunk that out and think about it separately. Take that with you when you're working with an attorney or financial advisor to build your plan. So let's talk about those resources. How can CMU help you, by golly? Well, it starts with this. This is our Plan Your Legacy guide. Okay, this is a complete estate planning guide. It's 30 pages long. You can download it from our site, which I'll show you in a minute, or we'll happily send you a printed copy if you're a paper person like me. And what this will do is, section by section, it'll walk through each category that you want to give some thought to in terms of planning your legacy. And it leaves room for you to fill in the blanks so that you can take it with you when you meet with an attorney or other advisor. And so we get requests from folks every few years to use this because they want to see they want to take a look at the one they did 3 years ago, think about the questions again and write them in. But this will give you a chance to really think through all of your potential beneficiary, all your goals, your healthcare representatives, guardians, minors, of course, assets, personal property, all that type of thing. And you can work through it at your pace and then have it available to you. So we highly recommend that if you haven't started on a plan and you need a place to start, please visit cmish.giftlegacy.com and request that download or request us to send it to you. We're happy to do that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some other tools that we have available that sort of fall into the, okay, I have a plan, but I really want to know, what are the different things that could fit into that plan in terms of the legacy I want to leave. And so I'm going to share my screen one more time here and take you to the website that I'm talking about, which is right here. And hopefully right now you're seeing our gift planning website that says "Your Contribution, Our Future." Allison is nodding, so I feel good about the fact that I'm on the right screen. And I'm just going to slide it over so I can see it a little better myself. And you can, what I want you to see is that we've built a website to make it really easy for you to do a little research and ask us questions if you'd like on all sorts of things. Now, for the most part, when we think about an estate plan, we think about a will or a living trust. And for those who like to support organizations as a part of that, about 70% of that support is what we would call a bequest, right? So this is you taking the time to include in your will or trust, to include in your estate plan, a specific beneficiary note to an organization or to a family member, that sort of thing. As you look and think about bequests, this is fairly simple, right? You've identified that these are all my assets and this is my plan. Some of it's going to go to my family and maybe a little bit to go to CMU. And I apologize because this is going to sound a little bit like a plug for giving to CMU. It is kind of what we do after all. So let's fire up for philanthropy for just a moment as I kind of talk about these kind of categories and make sure we include supporting CMU as a part of that. But what we've put on the website for you is a number of things to give you some information about generally when you're talking with your attorney. Okay, what are the benefits you would consider with a bequest? What are some of the different types of it? Do we have language available for you to take to your attorney to make it really easy? Yes, we do. You can cut and paste this language out. If you contact us and you're in the process of planning with an attorney or financial advisor, we can provide you the CMU's federal tax ID number, all of that good stuff. We want this to be really easy to the point that, and everybody's thinking about their will, as we hope they are, that we actually have a site completely dedicated to wills and bequests in general. And because in today's age, we want to all be able to watch a video on our phone, I've built out a number of videos for everybody to be able to learn more about, like this talk I'm giving now, estate plans generally, the basics of wills, trusts and healthcare, gifts to your family, those types of things, because I think it's really important sometimes for us as a part of this process to get comfortable with the subject matter. And I know for a lot of us, some of us like to read. I like reading and words and paper, but I know for a great many of us, just because this is how we consume a lot of information, video is also very helpful. So we've built that out for you as it pertains to wills and trusts in particular. But I spend a lot of time helping folks understand what is on this list here, which is sort of how you can give via your estate plan. Bequests are the thing most people think of, and we enjoy helping folks not only document that bequest with their estate plan for CMU in this case, but also seeing how it fits in with the larger plan you might have that includes your family and other causes, because your legacy is important to us too. I think a lot of times people think, well, once it's in the will, I'm done. Woo, my estate plan is over and CMU's in there. Thank you very much. Barbara, I'm going to keep picking on you because you're right in my picture window. Hope you don't mind. So Barbara has told myself that, hey, she's included CMU in the estate plan. Thank you, Barbara. We appreciate that. But it doesn't stop there, because a lot of times what we will need to be able to understand is, well, what do you intend for us to do with that wonderful gift? In the case of working with CMU, or maybe your church or another community organization that you're involved with, you'll need to make sure that that organization, A, knows that you've made this wonderful gift to them in your estate plan, but B, also what's included, because they may also want to, and we do at CMU, work back with you to establish, an agreement that says, yes, Barbara has shared with us that we're going to receive, I think 25% sounds good to me, Barbara, but we could talk about this if you want to. 25% of her estate to support an endowed scholarship at CMU. And here's what that scholarship will do, because that's what Barbara has intended for it to do. And so those plans are in place so that when the time comes, Barbara, that 25% comes to CMU, you can have the confidence in knowing that we're ready to endow that and start supporting students with that support right away. So there might be some additional steps with those that you've involved and you've identified in your estate plan. And so that's another reason why working with an advisor is really important. I also think that people think that, oh, if I do an estate plan, that's the only, that can be my only gift in the time. And the reality is, no, you can still support CMU on an annual basis if you'd so like, while also setting up an estate plan. And you can do that at the same time. So if you're the kind of person like me who likes to, set up his bills so that they're paid automatically, and I get the discount for all that type of thing, you might be the person that says, oh, at the same time that I'm letting CMU know of my bequest, I want to make sure that my annual donation continues, or perhaps increase it. In the case of Barbara and her generous bequest gift to set up this endowed scholarship, she might also say, hey, Jeremy, I'd like to make an annual gift at the same time so that I can meet students who will receive a scholarship like that. And so you can do both at the same time. And that is still a part of that larger estate planning experience. Something else that has changed recently from an estate planning standpoint is that, you remember hearkening back to that $20 trillion figure that I referenced early on in my screen, is that of that wealth, for generations before us, the first half of the boomers and beyond, working back, much of their wealth was held in their estate with their home and related property of that nature. Generations moving ahead, and you might find yourself, if you're a later boomer or you're a millennial like me. No, I wish I was. If you're a Gen Z like me, what is changing is that your profile of your assets may now include much more wealth that you own invested in your individual retirement accounts or related accounts like that from your employers. And because of that, as opposed to more of a traditional pension situation, you have that wealth as a part of the estate, and that's at your disposal to be able to both include in a long-term plan. But for those of us that are inching towards, if you're above 59, you can start to do some things out of your IRA. But really, the clock starts to trigger at 73 now. At 73, the government says, okay, you have to take a required minimum distribution from your IRA. And that's going to be taxed as income. And so the government has also said, but we get that for some folks, maybe they would like to do something different from that and have the full value of that make an impact. And so perhaps as you're thinking about your bequest gift and your IRA is a part of what you're looking at, know that you can roll over directly to charitable organizations like CMU and have the full benefit of your required minimum distribution be counted as a qualified charitable distribution. So we're seeing a lot of folks who are very smartly doing that, especially around IRAs. I will tell you this, and I want you all to talk to your advisors about this, but as you think about things that you will leave to your families or other organizations and where there could be some tax benefit, IRA will always be considered income, and income was always going to be one of those things that's most highly taxed in an estate situation and in an ongoing situation. Whereas things like homes and other types of assets, cars, things of that nature, the tax rate is much different and much more advantageable. So if you have a home worth $250,000 and an IRA worth $250,000, and you're going to give half to your family and half to an organization, know that it's better tax-wise for you to give the IRA to the organization and the home to the family. These are good things that both your financial advisor and your attorney can give you more details on, but we touch on that because there are, as I mentioned earlier in my slides, ways as a part of thinking through your estate plan that you can really minimize that tax on the front end for yourself and on the back end for family and others when it gets to that point. And then there are a number of other things in here that really kind of fall into that estate planning category, in which you can use a charitable gift to create an annuity to provide some ongoing income for yourself. You can roll a bit of your IRA to do the same. If you're at a point where you're thinking about, taking a good amount of your wealth and letting it work to support family and organizations long term, there are a number of ways you can do so through a charitable trust vehicle. For example, we recently worked with a donor in this situation where they, for 20 years after they were gone, had supported a family member. And in this particular case, the trust was paying out it was earning 6.38%, but it was paying out 5%. So the trust was growing a little bit. Well, at the end of that time, the trust had paid out in support of the family about as much as it was still valued at by the time that CMU received it. And so the money was doubled and worked to support the family as well as supporting CMU, the organization they cared about in the end. And then you might be in a position too where perhaps you've set some funds aside through your preferred bank or investment house, through a donor advised fund where you've pooled your charitable resources in a larger fund and you're allowed to designate where you want to go. Certainly, this is something you'll want to think about including if you have this direction for it in your estate plan. And if you have it and CMU had been benefiting from it, some direction on that would be welcome as well. All of these, you could pick one of these, and each one of these is going to have an explanation. Charitable unit trust is the most common one. An explanation with a graphic, a number of things about the benefits, options, how they work, so that you're prepared to not only think about how it might fit in my plan, but how I might enter into the discussion with my attorney or financial advisor about why this might work for me. And so we have all of this built out on the site. You can download specific brochures. There's a calculator there so that if you're really getting into it and want to start to think about this option versus that, you can do that as well. All of this we make available to you, our alumni and friends, free of charge. We are here to help. So a lot of times we will work with those folks who are kind of thinking this option versus that. We can provide you with illustrations and language that might be helpful for whoever's advising you. So we really are in a good place to be able to help you not only take initial steps to build a great estate plan, but to continue to evaluate it and tweak it and have it benefit your family and others the way you see fit for your legacy moving forward. With that, I will take a pause. I will stop sharing my screen. Hello, everybody. I will take a pause and see if there are any questions that maybe Allison has received that I can answer, or if there are any that anybody has and just want to shout out. That works now at this point because I'm kind of through. Oh, I take that back. I had one more slide, and this is an important slide. Let me go back to it. Let me see here. Where did my slides go? There they are. One more slide I wanted to share with everyone, which is a thank you. We really appreciate you taking some time to attend today, to learn more about this. And if you found this helpful, we hope that you'll reach out to us. I've included my contact information on here. You can easily find that on CMU's website. I also make a note that I've got a new partner in crime on the plan giving scene that's been a longtime member of our development staff, and he's on the call right now too. His name's Joe Halowicz. Joe was recently announced as our executive director of principal and plan gifts. So he has a lot of experience working with donors on plan gifts, and he's going to be helping me build a team to be able to help more and more of our friends who really want to make these plans and have CMU be a part of it. So congratulations, Joe. I'm glad you're on the call, and I just wanted everybody to see his face and information there too, as he'd be a great resource as any of there's a number, I think I see Christine and several others who are on this call that are a part of our major gift team that could be helpful for you in making your estate plans and thinking about CMU. All right, stop and sharing. Welcome me back to the show. And Allison, any questions at this point?
I have a question. Go ahead. Did someone else have a question? Or is it just me that's echoing maybe? Jeremy, you had kind of talked about, it's good to start this process at any point, but do you have an ideal age or time in your life, or what are the trends that you see where most people kind of start this process, and do you have any recommendations?
Great question. I think there's an assumption out there that estate planning is only for older folks. And while it's true, a lot of us really don't start thinking about this seriously. Probably, I think 50. There's a lot of things that happen at 50, right? And yours truly is only a year away from turning 50, so this is becoming more relevant to me. But where they really start thinking, okay, now is the time, right? I'm at a place where I have to start thinking of this. But the truth is that any time is a good time to start working on your estate plan, to put a plan in place. It's not just for folks that we typically think is more senior. It's just that we don't see much discussion of it targeted at younger populations, folks that would be under 50 or 60, right? So I think that my advice would be, even if you're in your 20 or your 30s and you have people that are important to you that you want to protect and are taken care of, things that are important to you, put your plan in place. Your plan will grow with you as you evolve it over time. So yes, Allison, totally want to debunk that myth. Estate planning is something I am, of course, advocating that we should all do as soon as we're ready to do so.
We do have one more that I can ask you. I know that you kind of talked about the process a little bit and what that looks like, but can you elaborate kind of more on what that would be? I think there's, kind of a thought that it's a long drawn out process. It gets very expensive. Can you talk to any of those points?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a process. It would not be fair to say that estate planning isn't a process, but I think it really depends on where you're at in life and what it is you're trying to establish from a legacy standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, there's a number of online services that are, fairly quick, easy to do, very affordable. They do include legal help, things of that nature. And if that is what is most comfortable to you in a way that you feel like, that would help you get started, right? It would be better for me to see it on my screen where I can get some real time back and forth. Certainly do that. I think if you're at more of a place where now your plan has evolved, your family has grown, your business interest, you might be at a point where you're selling a business, expanding a business, and you're at a point where beyond family, you're looking to leave a legacy of impact on things that you care about, like CMU or things in your community or your church. At that point, I think it's worth taking what you may have started with that plan or taking a much more, I would say, systemic approach, like with our planning guide here, and working through it with a professional in person, someone who can really sit there with you, read the way it is that you and other family members who might be with you are working through these considerations and give you really good advice based on the work they're doing with others who may be in a similar place. I don't think it's the kind of thing where you really can do this. You can put an estate plan in place in honestly in a matter of hours if you're prepared to do so. I think for most of us, and to do so in a way that we really feel good and confident in, protected by, it's a little bit longer of a process. And it's certainly seeking out the advice of an attorney. You want to go to someone maybe or you trust that works in this area. That'll take a little bit of time and a little bit of expense, but I think in the back end, it's worth that investment of maybe in addition to that, also the time talking to your family and some of your organizations. It's worth the investment of that time, which could be days, weeks, or months, because I think your satisfaction with the quality of your plan for yourself at the end is well worth it.
Thank you. Does anyone
You're
else
welcome.
have any questions or comments that they would like to make?
Is there anything in the chat by chance?
I don't have anything more in the chat.
Okay.
In the public chat.
Somebody said they couldn't read my email on that last slide. No problem.
I will make sure that I include that as well in our follow-up email. We can also include the link, any of the links that Jeremy showed today, websites to go to. If there's no further questions, I will go ahead and say thank you to Jeremy for your time and energy and effort into this campus conversation. We truly appreciate it. And thank you everyone for attending today. Please feel free to visit our alumni events website for more campus conversations. We do have one happening tomorrow, focusing on the 30th anniversary of our physical therapy program here at CMU. Jeremy, do you have anything you'd like to close with?
No, I would, well, yes, I would, sorry, should have said no. No, nothing like super major, but very important. I do want to thank everybody for their time today. I do want to thank you for your interest in this subject. As you can probably tell, I'm an advocate for it for pretty much everybody I see and meet. And not just for CMU's benefit, although that's a part of it, but really because I think this is important for all of us and the way things have shifted for how we now more often as individuals are charged with managing and caring for the wealth that we have, the assets that we have, and the family and things that are important to us, right? It's become much more of a system and a situation where we have to take such action. And so I'm an advocate for people learning about it. I'm certainly an advocate to anybody who wants to reach out and contact me. I'll do my best to certainly answer your questions, especially as it pertains to your interest and how they align with CMU. I know I've harped on, seeking out the advice of an attorney. It's because there really are such things as probate law and estate tax situations and the way they cross. Boy, when you've got somebody who knows that legal side and how it interacts with the financial side, well, that's what they do every day. Boy, they can really help you establish a situation that will really not only take care of your legacy long term, but put you in as strong a financial place as you can be in the short term. And so, please do seek that out. Please do seek us out. Use everything we have that's available. And if you need more, let us know. We can always do a custom illustration for you if you're considering something like a trust or something like a gift that has multiple functions going on. We're happy to do that. That's the fun part of what we do, is kind of helping people use the resources we have to give them an advantage as to when they're considering these factors. So thank you. It's been wonderful chatting with all of you, and I hope to hear from some of you soon. And to my colleagues who joined in the call, thank you as well. I always appreciate your support. Allison, you were great. I appreciate you as well. Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great day and fire up.
Fire up.